Hey guys, today we are continuing our functions unit, and today's focus is writing equations of lines, and that comes from standard 8.f.4, which says that you should be able to write an equation to model a linear relationship, which means that you need to be able to find the rate of change, the slope, as well as the y-intercept, and you may be given verbal descriptions, 2 points, tables, graphs, equations, a variety of types of information. The great news is between first semester and our warm-up problems this unit, you guys have really already done all of the pieces, and today we're going to put those together. So step 1 is to find the slope. Either it was given in the problem or you are using your knowledge of slope, delta y over delta x, rise over run, to find the slope. Step 2, find the y-intercept. Maybe it was given either in words or as the point 0b. Remember, the y-intercept is the point where the line intersects the y-axis, which is going to be the value of y when x is 0. So that might be another way they give us the y-intercept. If not, we're going to find it, and we're going to do that by taking an x value from the ordered pair, its corresponding y value, and the slope, and plugging that into slope-intercept form to solve for b. And you guys have already done that as well. So here's what that looks like. By the way, your standard says that you must be able to use slope-intercept form. Later on, we will look at another way to do it. So from last semester, when we were in our first unit, so we're going to review that a little bit today. Finding the slope, remember, we would look at rise over run on a graph, and it doesn't matter which point you choose, but you do want to be strategic in choosing points in the crosshairs, the lattice points, so that you know exactly what the x value is and the y value as well. So here, maybe I start at this point and I'm going to have to go down, and then I'm going to travel to the right. So going down, I went down 2 units, that is -2, and I went to the right 5 units, which is a +5. So when I go to write my slope as rise over run, my rise I went down 2, so my rise was -2 over +5. That is my slope. And then remember, when we're finding y-intercept, we're looking for where it crossed the y-axis. Well, this point right here is the y-intercept, and that is at 2. Y is equal to 2 there. We could write it as an ordered pair, 0, 2. The b value in our equation is going to be 2. So then step 3, write the equation, y equals mx plus b. When we go to do that, y is equal to, our slope was -2/5, so y equals -2/5 x. And then for the b, since the b is a +2, we're going to write +2. Remember, if b had been -2, we would just say y equals -2/5 x minus 2. So you need to pay attention to what the sign of b is. And so for our final answer, it would be this equation, y equals -2/5 x plus 2. All right, the next example, it says to write an equation in slope-intercept form of the line that has slope of 3 and passes through the point 1, 4. So step 1 is to find the slope. Well, they give it to us. The slope of 3, m is equal to 3. So for step 2, y is equal to mx plus b. Our y is going to come from that ordered pair that they gave us. So the ordered pair, we're going to use this ordered pair 1, 4, keeping in mind that our ordered pairs are x, y. And we also need that slope from step 1, and we figured out that our slope was 3. So the y that we're going to plug in is 4, equals the m that we're going to plug in is 3. The x value that we're going to plug in is 1, and then we have the plus b, okay? So then we can simplify the 3 times 1. We get 3 plus b on the right side of that equation. And then remember, we're trying to find b. We're going to solve that equation. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides, and we would get 1 equals b. And that is our y-intercept. Okay, so step 1 and step 2 are done. And now we're down to step 3. Step 3, write the equation y equals m. Well, our m value from step 1 was 3 times x plus b. Our y-intercept from step 2 was a positive 1, so we're going to put plus 1, and there's our final answer. Okay. So for example 2, step 1, find the slope. Well, remember, if we're looking for slope, we should be thinking with tables delta y over delta x. So if I look at all of my changes from -2 to 3, my x value increased by 5. From 3 to 5, that's an increase of 2. From 5 to 20, that's an increase of 15. For y, from 1 to 11, y increased by 10. From 11 to 15, y increased by 4. From 15 to 45, y increased by 30. So when I go to write delta y over delta x, remember delta y goes in the numerator. Don't make one of the most common mistakes. So my first delta y is 10. Its corresponding change in x was 5. Delta y over delta x, 4 over 2, and then the last fraction would be 30 over 15. Now remember, if all of these are equal, we're certain that the relationship is linear. If any of them are not equal, it's not linear, we couldn't write an equation in slope-intercept form. But 10 divided by 5, 4 divided by 2, 30 divided by 15, all of those are equal to 2. So we know it's linear, and we know slope is 2. Okay. Step 2, we want to find the y-intercept. So again, we need a point, and we need an xy, and we need our slope. Well, step 1, we found out that our slope was 2. And actually, for the xy, the ordered pair that we need, we have 4 choices. We could choose the point -2, 1. We could choose the point 3, 11. We could choose the point 5, 15. And we could choose the point 20, 45. I'm going to go with -2, 1, only because I doubt many of you would have wanted to choose the negative. So we're going to choose the negative to show you that it's really not bad. Okay, so we're going to use the point -2, 1. So x would be -2 and y would be 1 along with our slope. Now we're going to plug everything in. So the y value is 1 equals m. Step 1, we found out that m was 2 times the x from the point, that is -2, plus b. And so we get 1 equals -4 plus b. And if we're solving for b, we need to add 4 to both sides. And we get 5 equals b. So that is our y-intercept. Okay? And so the only thing left to do is to write the equation of a line, write our final answer. So y equals, we're going to plug in m, which was 2. So y equals 2x. And then for b, it was a positive 5, so we're going to write plus 5. And that's our final answer. Okay, example 3. What happens when we have 2 points? We need to find the slope. And if we're finding slope, remember we're thinking delta y over delta x. Now last semester, several of you guys found that it was easier to organize your work or your thinking if you wrote the points on top of each other. So remember, we're looking at x and y. This makes it really just like the table problem that we just did. For delta y, how much did y change? Well, from 2 to -4, it went down 6. For x, it went from 6 to 10, so that's plus 4. So when we go to write our slope, delta y over delta x, that would be -6 over 4. Now remember, we always want to reduce. So if we simplify that fraction, they both have a common factor of 2. So we would get -3/2. So there is my slope for this problem. Okay. Step 2, finding our y-intercept. We know our slope is -3/2. And we have 2 points to choose from. You could choose 6, 2. You can choose 10, 4. My guess is, sorry, 10, negative 4. My guess is that most of you guys would choose 6, 2. Again, it does not matter. You're going to come up with the same b. So if we plug those in, for y, we're going to plug in 2. Remember, that's your x and your y. 2 equals negative 3/2 times 6 plus b. I'm going to write a capital B here just so my b's and my 6's don't look the same. So 2 equals, if we multiply negative 3/2 times 6, we get negative 9 plus b. To solve for b, we want to add 9 to both sides, and we get 11 equals b. So now we have our y-intercept. And at that point, we're ready to write our equation. So y equals, plug in our m. That was negative 3/2 x, and then for plus b, it's a positive 11, so we're going to write plus 11, final answer. So are there any shortcuts? Well, sometimes they might give us the slope. We had an example where they said the slope was 3. Sometimes they give us the y-intercept if you recognize it. So if we're looking at this first example, it says through the origin. Well, the origin is 0, 0. And if we're looking at the graph, this is the origin. Well, that is also the y-intercept. So immediately, the value of y when x is 0. That's our b, so b would be 0. The only thing now that you would have left to do is to find your slope. So delta y over delta x. From negative 5 to 0, it went up 5. From 4 to 0, it went down 4. Now remember, with slope, fractions aren't simplified with negatives in the denominator. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative. We would write that as negative 5/4. And b is 0. So y equals negative 5/4 x. For the second example, oh look, x is 0. So this is our y-intercept. b is equal to negative 2. The only thing then that you would need is your slope, right? So if you're looking for delta y over delta x, from negative 3 to negative 2, that is a plus 1. From 2 to 0, that went down 2. So my slope is negative 1/2, okay? So then my equation would be y equals negative 1/2 x. My b is a negative 2, so we would write that as minus 2, okay? Well, what if you didn't recognize that 0, negative 2 was your y-intercept? You know what? It's okay. Here would be an option. As soon as you figure out that your slope is negative 1/2, you could walk through those same steps that we did earlier. Maybe you really like the point 2, negative 3. Maybe you decide to use it. So y equals mx plus b. My y is negative 3 equals m is negative 1/2 times x, which is 2, plus b. So negative 3 equals negative 1/2 times 2 is negative 1 plus b. We're solving for b, so we would add 1 to both sides. And negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. So we would come up with the same answer. Okay, well, what if you chose the other point? Again, we've already found the slope. Step 1, slope is negative 1/2. What if instead you'd chosen 0, negative 2, but you'd forgot that that was the y-intercept? Well, that's okay, because when you go to plug it in, y equals mx plus b. Y is negative 2. M is negative 1/2. X is 0 plus b. Negative 2 equals negative 1/2 times 0 is 0. So we get 0 plus b, but 0 plus anything is just that value. So we would get b equals negative 2. So no matter what, we're getting that our y-intercept is negative 2. Okay? That's really it. So earlier I mentioned that we would do it another way later. Is this the only way? No. Your standard says you have to be able to use y equals mx plus b, so that's where we're starting. But in high school, you're actually going to use something called point-slope form a good bit. And here's your equation for point slope, so that's something to look forward to. Thanks, guys. See you next time.